lab. Responses engine 5, engine 3, engine 1, ladder 3, ladder 2, rescue 1. We've got smoke showing. Division 1, you're on location, box 23, reporting smoke show on 727.
Welcome to JobTlks podcast. Our goal is to facilitate knowledge sharing. The views and opinions of the hosts and guests on the show belong solely to the people expressing them. We do not represent the departments, cities, or towns we work for.
You know what they say, Will? You can put tube socks on an antelope. Doesn't mean he's going to run any faster. There's a lot of knowledge there. Think about it. All right, let's do it.
All right. Welcome back. Season 2, episode number 7. Today we're going to be talking to you guys about primary search. Going back to the clip we released a couple weeks ago, as I was putting this together, we had that shout out for New Bedford Fire Department. If you haven't watched that clip or heard about them, take a look at that. It's in our playlist clips. So, gonna get right into it here.
Stanton, Virginia firefighters arrived to this home completely engulfed in flames. Their fight captured on helmet cameras. They'd soon extinguish the fire. But it was this next moment, not often captured on tape, that shows just what these first responders are up against. Using flashlights to navigate dark hallways filled with toxic smoke, firefighters eventually emerged with a victim, unconscious but alive.
So one of the biggest tasks out of fire is doing a primary search and making sure that we get any and all victims out of the house as soon as possible, or the building. So we're going to talk a little bit about primary search here. We're not going to talk so much about primary search in large open structures. I think that's in and of itself a whole different game. So we're going to talk generally like residential structures, maybe apartment buildings where you're going room to room and not in big open spaces.
Yeah.
But obviously it's huge. I was listening to National Fire Radio's podcast this morning, and he was talking about kind of the three principles of fighting a fire, and one is extinguishment of the fire, fighting the fire. Second is search, so finding any victims, and then the third is like ventilation, so opening up.
And the fourth?
In this episode, he happened to be talking about changing his mindset that there should be a fourth component that is self-rescue,
right.
or
safety,
firefighter safety being available for yourself. So one of the primary functions of fire is searching and rescuing victims. So one of the things that we like to say is that training is where the rescue is made, right? So it doesn't do you any good to show up to a building fire completely untrained. Nick, I love you to death, but if you showed up to a building fire and they told you to go in and make a rescue,
I'd call you.
You call us, and I would call you if I needed to make a podcast, because that's just how things work. So before you're ever in that situation, training and being ready for that situation, which is kind of what we're all about here, is talking about these things before they happen, is huge. So a couple key points to training is to be familiar with your gear, and comfortable in your gear. So that could be your SCBA, your turnout gear, your tools, what you carry in your pocket. I know I carry a piece of webbing specifically for rescues. You guys carry anything like that to help you pull somebody out if you had to?
Not currently, no.
Yeah.
I probably should. I mean, but right now no, I should.
Yeah.
I was going to say right now my focus is
Self-rescue.
extinguishment and self-rescue, but I mean, you could just as easally be on that initial attack line and find someone, and now you're making a grab.
Yeah.
We have a department issued 12-foot piece of whatchamacallit?
Webbing.
Webbing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I always go to call it like strapping, but webbing for the purposes of what we're doing, and I have a carabiner attached to it just because I know there's a million ways to use it. So
Makes it easy.
Yeah.
We just, fortunately, I just did a little bit of search training with some of the guys on my group, and that was one of the things is carrying the webbing and just putting it around. And like for me, it seemed like the easiest thing to do is just girth hitch under the shoulders, and then you can kind of throw it over your shoulder or pull backwards or whatever the case is.
I should really carry some webbing.
Yeah, webbing's a good tool, and it's light, doesn't take up space. I know my old job, we had the removable knee pads, and a lot of guys carried it
Underneath.
under
You
the
still
knee
see guys
pad,
that-
and you'll see like just the loop of it sticking out, so you could grab it really quickly.
yeah, I never leave the loop sticking out because I just feel like it's going to get inevitably get snagged on something.
I agree.
But something that I always forget about, and it's just because we don't pull the hoses enough, right? But you always see the video where someone wraps it around the hose, puts it around their shoulder, and so they're like literally flowing a 2.5 by themselves. Like maybe there's a loop already made, but they're flowing the 2.5 by themselves because it's all on their
Physics.
shoulder physics, and it's like a torsional effort where now you're like this, and it's like
Right.
you have all that leverage over the thing.
There's a picture out there somewhere of a firefighter on the third floor of a spiral staircase using webbing to secure a 2.5 for a great shot. I wonder if you have that photo somewhere.
I do. That firefighter was on the exterior as I was involved fighting the fire on the interior.
I used webbing to secure a 2.5 to a railing.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
It's a versatile tool.
Yep.
Full bore with a 2.5.
Yeah.
And I could have controlled that thing with a finger.
Yeah.
Because I was using webbing.
Absolutely. Good tool to have. And again, light doesn't take up much room. So doing the training, and then again, like I said, getting in reps with the training. So I know when we did that training, one of the guys we were training with figured out he didn't like something the way his gear was set up and was able to adjust, Another big part of this is knowing your district. So do you have like a basic knowledge of the construction types, the construction patterns in your district or your town or your city, whatever it is? Different places in the country have different primary buildings, like are they type 3, are they type 5? You go down into the New Jersey area, you get a lot of row homes. You come up here, you have a lot of colonials, old brick. You have you may work somewhere there's development, so the patterns of the houses are almost identical,
Even within Cambridge, for example, I always said that East Cambridge is the most structurally diverse in the city because you can go from triple deckers all the way up to, the biopharmaceutical capital of the world. Yeah.
Right.
But I really experienced that in my transferring from Engine 3 to Engine 1, where I was used to a certain type of construction pattern, normally like 2.5 triple decker, like right on top of
Attached.
each other, or these high rises. Now working towards Harvard Square, where you have some very, very old buildings that might be 5 stories up, but they're not sprinklered. So that's something I had to learn the hard way a couple of times. Is like even in the district or municipality that you work in, if you change houses, it can be completely different building style.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And knowing the construction allows you to do a few things. It allows you to kind of anticipate some of the hazards that are going to come with the fire movement and things like that, or how difficult it is to get to a fire. Particularly your district, you talk about some of those old dorms, and you're getting in there is a nightmare.
And that's all brick. And I had never experienced like that type of construction. You don't see that in the east side of the city. And now Harvard, for example, is like that type of construction is
everywhere,
all of it.
Yeah.
Right. And then number 2 is it allows you to sort of anticipate where you might find victims. So if you have, fire in area A, you can anticipate that victims might be moving or trying to get out via area B or C or something like that. I know I'd heard one time, I don't know how true it is, but people are creatures of habit. In an emergency, they're going to go to the path they know versus the path that's safe. And I think they highlighted the nightclub, the station nightclub fire,
Rhode Island,
where instead of going through other doors that were open exits, everybody flooded to the way that they came in.
They came
in.
So knowing general routes of people that people travel and things like that can make anticipating where you find victims. I don't want to say easier, but it can at least allow you to make educated decisions.
Yeah.
And then have a game plan. So whether it's an SOG that says, hey, this is how our departments conducts primary search, and that's going to be very different in a city department like ours with the resources like ours, and a department that's staffing 2 people on their first due engine or truck, and they're not getting another company to help them for several minutes. So know your SOGs, and then within that also know like your roles in your crew. So I know like I work with one other person on a squad, so he and I kind of have a mindset of how we're working. When somebody comes and works a detail or overtime, we talk about like, hey, I'm going to carry the tick, like whatever, however it's going to work. And I think like having that communication within your crew just makes that one less thing that you have to think about when the time comes.
And I think that there's so much, and I'm definitely not the expert in search. That's typically not my role. So you guys would probably speak to it a little bit more than me. But I think tailoring your primary search approach, and like even like tailoring your approach given the time of day. So like for me, if I were to be doing, if I got details of squad or something like that, like if it's in the middle of the night, I'm probably going to orient more towards like bedrooms, second floor, or like an occupied space. Yeah. Or if it's like midday, but there's a car in the driveway, I'd probably more focus on like livable spaces, like, hey, check the kitchen, check the living room, areas that were like, hey, maybe they're trying to make their way to the kitchen to the back door or something. I don't know. I mean, like I said, I'm not an expert, but I probably wouldn't go to the bedrooms right away at like noon. I don't know. I mean, used to sleep in though, so
I was going to say that's where you're going to find me.
Yeah.
So that's actually part of my next point here is sizing up the building when it happens, right? So
yeah, I think you can deviate from the standardized, like, oh, I'm going to do a left-handed or right-handed search. Yeah. Like you can be targeted with here.
Yeah, we're going to go. Well, yeah, we're definitely going to talk about that specifically. So sizing up the building and the structure. So number one, where's the fire? Is it on the roof? Okay, so we know that we're going to be operating below the fire, and we can probably get victims down. Or say it's a high-rise fire on the roof. We're gonna be generally safe. Is it a first floor fire in a 2-family where fire is extending up the stairwell and going upstairs, and that's where the bedrooms are? Where's the fire in the structure and the type of structure? And then to Barry's point, where are the likely victims? So if it's the middle of the night, you pull up, there's cars in the driveway, nobody's outside to greet you. That's a big one, right?
That's a problem.
Then you can expect like, hey, I probably need to get upstairs, and that's important because are you searching ahead or above a hand line? Yeah. Because that creates a hazard, right? Yep. I think we played it in our RIT episode our self-rescue and bailout episode. Is the person that went in for a search and ended up having to bail out of the window because he was in ahead of the hose line, and the room flashed 15 seconds after he left. And then anticipate the hazard. So are there window bars? Is there unpermitted renovation? And that stuff you're not going to necessarily know until you're in the building. But and then what about flow path? Flow path is a hazard that we have to consider. So if we have fire burning on the C side of the building and we open the door on the A side of the building, we are creating a flow path directly at us, right? And I have a personal experience doing that. Barry made fun of me for it yesterday. Actually, might have been at that same fire. Barry was outside holding the 2.5 on.
I was limiting the damage from the flow path.
He was limiting the damage from the flow path. So we had a rear porches, gasoline shingle siding, and burning really good in the back. I forced entry to the front door. I swear to you, I listen, maybe somebody with more experience forcing doors than me because I don't have a ton of it. The door literally went.
Oh yeah,
sucked it right open, and my fault was I was not ready to enter the building. So I didn't have my gloves on yet. I didn't have my face piece on yet. And when I literally just went to reach that like 2 feet in to get the doorknob, I couldn't. It was too hot.
Right.
So I fully think that created a flow path. And when we did make entry initially to try and make a search, we were met by a wall of fire in the hallway, 15 feet in, 10 feet into the door.
Oh yeah.
So the flow path is a hazard that we have to be aware of, especially working ahead or above the hose line.
Door control, Will.
Door control. 100%. And you know what? I like. Part of me was like,
how excited were you?
Did you try reaching in with the Halligan to close it?
Yeah, I couldn't. Like I said, literally just to get my hands over the threshold with burning my hands. So
some of the doors that I've popped, I usually get like so excited to just like put some effort into it. Like, boom, pop them open. You just like it's like a second too late. We're like, oh no, and you're like trying to retrieve the door.
I successfully forced the door.
Yeah.
Now what?
So what's funny is we actually did forcible entry training that morning.
Right.
And so we practiced that more, which is great because it was like fresh in my mind.
Yep.
I had to take 3 steps to get the door open, but it was
set
quick.
Gap force.
And it wasn't even that like I rammed the door.
Gap set.
Like I literally like once it released it, like I went for it with the Halligan and missed it, and then
Ripped
tried
it
to get
open.
in and just whipped it right open.
Whipped
So,
it back, yeah.
so that was a learning point for me. But again, the flow path is huge. And there are like multiple methods of conducting a primary search. So we're going to talk about some of the different methods. So this is,
What's a primary search?
well, people can't see this PowerPoint, so they don't know that.
Spelling has been a consistent issue for the JobTlks crew.
Yeah.
I think you're blind because
Started on day one.
That clearly says search.
Hold on.
Started on day one with
gotta-
the A.
Yeah,
Let me clean my glasses.
exactly. Listen, we leave letters out. That's our thing.
Squints.
We leave letters out. Sometimes I add them back in.
That's right.
Listen here, squints.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about some of the methods for doing a primary search, or I guess the real thing is some of like the ideas and principles of doing it. So as usual, we're not here trying to tell you how to do a primary search. You should have your own SOGs. You should train with the people you work with under your department's guidance to learn how to do a primary search. These are just some of the concepts. So first method, if you will, is what I kind of labeled as the basics, right? So this is the stuff that you probably learned in the academy. It's still out there and being taught. However, I was recently informed that they're moving away a little bit from this model to allow us to be more effective at searching and to do it a little bit quicker. But these are the basics, and just like anything, you have to know the basics, because if your technology fails or whatever fails, you have to be able to like orient yourself and figure out a way out of it. So kind of the basics of doing a primary search is obviously getting into the building, however that is. And then once you make entry, if you're going through a doorway, sound the floor as you move, and especially if you're operating above a flyer floor. And then one of the things too is before you even sound the door, is you ever hear everybody say reach in and make that sweep left and right, because a lot of people again are trying to make that exit, and they just don't get out in time. And then you kind of choose a basic search pattern. And again, this is also where knowing the construction or layout is helpful, so you can kind of make an educated guess whether going right or left would be better. Sometimes it doesn't matter. And then so you're going to pick a right or left hand search that literally is putting your right or left hand on the wall and searching the pattern of the wall. With this type of search, you kind of want to stay oriented to the wall. So you're going to use your tool, use sweeping motions, trying to feel out into the hallways or to like the living room, bigger space from you. I know in the academy they had all kinds of things, so you can like put your foot on the wall and lay out and try and reach. You can, one guy can be on the wall and then you're next to him and he's holding your heel, and then you're reaching your tool, so you can get 10 or 15 feet of reach if you need to, while always staying oriented to that wall, because that wall is your way out, right? So if you came that way, in theory you should be able to get back that way. And then make a mental map as you move. So you want to try to always be making a mental map when you're working a fire, whether it's on the hose line, whether you're doing a search, whatever the case is try and like take note of when you find doors. Obviously in this scenario, you're going to be searching them. Windows, furniture that you come across can help identify the type of room you're in. I don't know if you guys, I do know you guys have done blackout training, where you're either smoked up or in a blackout mask.
Yeah.
How often do you think you're in one spot in the building, and then when you can finally see you're
not
nowhere
even
near?
nowhere near where you think
You're
you
nowhere
are.
near.
Yeah, but I will say, because we've been really fortunate. We've had 2 buildings given to us in Stoughton. One of them just got torn down, but we were able to go cut up the roof. Before that, we smoked up the whole entire building. We did search, we did hose line advancement, the whole bit. And,
That's awesome.
Yeah, so going through some of it. You kind of think you have an idea where you are, and then all of a sudden you're just like, I really actually don't even know where I am right now.
Yeah. I mean, it
It's
happens
just
to
like,
everybody.
But then all of a sudden you come across a familiar object and you go, okay, I know where I am now.
Suddenly I have a dresser or
Yeah.
a bed or a crib or a dining room table or something like that.
It was just nice because we smoked up. We didn't get to go into the building. We smoked the building up, and then it was like, all right, go in. And it was like, oh, all right. Yeah, we really just have to figure this out. And then you get that experience, and because all the searches that I've been involved in have been on like above or below where there's like light smoke conditions, so you're not on your knees and you can literally just like run through, rip through.
Right.
Okay. Clear,
much
clear,
faster.
clear.
Right.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, actually having to like be on your hands and knees and stay close, and keep it together and be able to find out where you are and actually stay on the wall,
Yeah.
even though it's like training and you don't even want to. You're like, no, I don't need to. You really just want to come off the wall and do like the tick training, but it's like, no, that's not what we're training here.
Right.
You know, but
It is
really,
the basics. Yeah.
you'll get disoriented quick.
And what I feel like is that you move, like you think you moved 10 feet and you moved either 30 feet or you moved 2 feet. You know what I mean? And you're like, God, how big is this house?
Because you're
You know?
you're taking away one of your biggest perception senses.
Yeah.
You're operating on
And then
tactile and
and then if you end up going in rooms, well, now you're, okay, did I come back to the same door?
Yeah.
Am I now back on this hallway? Which
Right.
is, why you tend to leave like somebody at the door
Yeah,
or,
yeah.
just inside the room where they can keep contact with that, because even in a small residential structure, I mean, you saw it unfortunately in Worcester a few years ago. That was either a 3-story or 2.5-story, I think. And you get disoriented.
Was this Menard?
Menard or Roy?
Oh yeah, that's right.
I think it was Roy.
Roy, that was
Because that's where they use
one.
the high point system to get out, right?
And I believe that was a 3-decker.
3-decker,
I
yeah.
believe it
So,
was,
sorry, I heard that it's a triple decker. 3-decker is a sandwich.
a tree decker,
A
triple decker.
One of our former deputy chiefs put that on Twitter. But yeah, so a triple decker house that's not, you're not talking about searching a Walmart. You know what I mean? And you can get disoriented just as easily, and then if something happens where you lose your mask or something like that and you start taking CO, I mean it happens really quick.
It's fortuitous because another future episode talks about like being confident in your equipment.
That's gonna be next week, right?
I believe so.
Yep.
I believe so. I'll check the schedule.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest takeaways from the last lecture event that we did, and like to your credit, what you said earlier is that the save is made in training, so we should be training for that operational environment. So I think one of the only times I've ever really like consistently trained in a blackout mask is like during primary search or to be confident with SCBA skills, but forcible entry, like getting prepared to be doing a lot of these skills in blackout conditions, because that's your operational environment. So combining those two of, hey, the save is made in training, and the training should represent our operational environment, which is often either limited or zero visibility.
Yeah,
that's something I have to be better with.
And
we'll
even
walk in
and even don't think about
forcible
don't think about like the front door. Think about you're in a hallway and you got to pop multiple bedroom doors, and that's you know what I mean. You potentially be completely blacked out, where you're literally feeling for the sills and all that stuff. So
I will say, and not to take away from like the seriousness of what you're talking about, because you're right, but I will say, and I think we've moved away from construction of old where you have like these like solid oak doors and like these real legit locking mechanisms,
rich mahogany
wood,
right.
And we have our hollow core doors and things like that now, and even some of like the nicer doors, like solid core doors, the locking mechanism. I'm going to tell you that most bedrooms and things like that, unless, and you never know, and that's like, I love like watching these FDNY like videos where they have like these doors that have like 76 locks on them, right? But it's, you can mostly hip open these doors. You can get up and you can hip open these doors. So
Cook doing a B&E.
Yeah, give it a
everyone wants to be involved in B&E.
Right. Turns out I just wanted to kick a door down.
I put my shoes on and I came out. Which is absolutely true, and again, like that goes back to knowing the construction.
They took the batteries. That's it.
Yeah,
they replaced them with shitty half-ass batteries. If I can't figure this out, I want a divorce. Are you watching Door Kicker? See what you've done to my life.
Barry, you're
right
okay.
You're right there. I literally don't even know what that quote is from.
It's Dane Cook. Stand up.
Oh well, I mean, I have the shoes on.
Shout out Dane Cook. Please listen.
Yeah,
actually,
like and subscribe.
Yeah. Pseudo related to Dane Cook.
Oh, okay.
Story for another day.
I totally lost my train of thought. Thanks, Barry.
Kicking doors down.
Oh,
so
and that goes back to that goes back to knowing your district too. Is like, again, if you go to the dorms where Barry is, you're gonna find solid shit.
Yeah. And like the school and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
So like knowing your thing and like not to get into forcible entry, but like shocking that door, like you said, a little hip or a little bump with the Halligan, you'll know pretty quick if that's a soft door.
Yeah.
So making that map as you go, trying to keep yourself oriented to the building, always staying oriented to the wall, and then maintaining crew integrity, right? So we might go and you might peel off into a room to do the search, and I might stay in the doorway, but I should be able to always hear you.
Yeah.
And so one of the things like I was taught and that I like to do is, if you're doing the search, is I'll kind of sound a Halligan on the door or on the wall.
Yeah.
Just like, like, hey, sound the Halligan. If you can't hear the Halligan, you're probably getting out of
Too
like
far.
Yeah, you're probably getting out of like maintaining crew integrity with me. Also, if you need to just beeline back to the door because you found a victim, having that Halligan, now I can hear you, I can go straight for you. So that's one of those things that I was told a while ago, and I like to practice when I do a search. And that also goes back to maintaining communication.
Well, that's just optimizing efficiency, right? So in the academy, they talk about hold on to your partner's gloved, the
heel,
corner of their
yeah.
leg, but that's not realistic, right?
No.
So ways that we can optimize that through using like auditory stimulus,
right?
Either staying in verbal contact, tick-directed search, what have you, is just compounding upon that and making it more efficient.
Yeah.
I think that is like the way to get people to start. It's like baby steps. Like this is how we'll start, right? And then if you remember in academy, eventually they have one person send in somebody, right? They like no longer like, okay, you guys know that skill. You don't need that.
Right.
We're gonna graduate to this. This is what the real gold standard of how we're gonna do things.
Right.
So, but yeah, that whole thing is like
It's the crawl, walk, run phase.
And again, if you're doing something a little more advanced, which we're going to talk about next, and things go south, well, now you have like a basics to fall back on. So, so even when you're doing something like camera assisted search, which we're going to talk about, you kind of need to know like what direction you're going in the house, so that if you have to leave and your camera fails, okay, I know I still stayed kind of going to the right of the house, and communication, to your point, can be verbal, it can be auditory where you're making sounds with tools or whatever. It could be physical, it could be touch, whatever the case is. Just you have to stay in communication, or it can be visual with a tick or in a light smoke condition or whatever the case is.
I had an issue a couple of weeks ago. I tried giving a guy hand signals. I was like,
I only know the airport signals.
You can't see my hand signals in a.
Barry was literally like waving a cloth, trying to actually make smoke signals.
I was creating a flow path as well.
Barry's on one today.
The creative juices are flowing.
Yeah, there's something.
Yeah, it's the creative energy.
Yeah, we're not giving you that before
sorry.
an episode anymore. You just yelled at us for like 3 minutes. I'm just kidding. I love you. So moving on, and like I just coined this the advanced practices, right? And so this is, use whatever term you want. This is like moving away from your basic right-handed, stay on the wall, stay touching each other searches. So one of the big ones, and this is the one that we practiced recently, is using a camera-assisted search. And this is a great tool, because one of the things that happens when you do those basic searches, and kind of what we talked about, is they are slow. Right.
Very slow.
So you can't move very quickly, and you need to be able to move quickly. So if you have the ability to use a thermal imaging camera to conduct a search, you're going to be able to clear a primary search so much faster. And again, like a thermal camera could go down, the heat conditions could be that you don't see things very well, whatever the case is, there are limitations to it. However, it can make your search so much faster. And as our good friend, Schraub Martinello said, he'd rather break his leg doing a quick search and getting somebody out of the building than take his time and let somebody die because we didn't get to him.
Yeah.
Well, we're leveraging technology to optimize efficiency. Right. And to John's credit, when you said like, hey, this is the basic foundation, and these are kind of the advanced practices as you coin them, you can leverage these techniques, these ideas, and in this case, like this technology, to optimize efficiency and to make it faster and hopefully make the environment more survivable.
I would equate it to, like a medical scenario where it's kind of like, if you lose your way, go back to basics.
Yeah.
And run yourself back through the ABCs to make sure you're not missing anything.
Yeah.
Right. And then
absolutely,
that's if you lose your way, you have basic best practices.
Yeah, you have
basics
fallback.
Yeah, basics can usually get things done, but in this case, I think we really need to move on to training more advanced.
And that's
tactics.
a big thing is training to do it. So, So doing the camera assisted search, this is where the officer or one of the two partners would be using a thermal imaging camera to stay oriented in the building. So instead of having to physically stay in contact with the wall, you're using the thermal imaging camera to stay oriented to where you are in the building, and then to scan rooms. So the officer then would send, and we're just going to use the term officer because that's the person holding the camera kind of leading the search, right? So the officer then sends the search firefighter to search rooms at his or her discretion and guidance. So one of the things that we did when we trained on this a few weeks ago is we peered in the room. We had a dummy hidden, and you can look with a thermal imager and say, hey, I can see the whole left side of this room. I can't see the right side. Put the camera to their face. That's where I need you to go search. And then from there, they do that kind of right-handed into that crevice, and then you can guide them like, hey, say you see something. So this happened to me. He's like, I sent the guy kind of the wrong way because you get a little bit like looking at the camera gets a little funky sometimes. And I was like, no, actually go the other way. And then I noticed, I think I see legs. And I was able to say, hey, move to your right, move to your right, move to your right, and guide him right to the victim.
Right.
And then right back to me. So you can clear parts of rooms with the camera. Like, again, you can't see on the other side of beds. Sometimes it doesn't do great. Like seeing things under covers, like that, the depth perception on it. But you can say, hey, I can see the whole left side of this room. I need you to search the closets, and on and behind the bed. And you can guide them. They can look at it, know where they're going, and then go do it and come right back. Right. And that visual sense, even just looking at that camera, like if you hold it up to their face and you get that visual layout of the room, now they're going to be quicker, even though once they leave you, they can't see anymore because they have an idea of where the layout is.
Right.
I think it's important to focus more, like you said, on camera assisted search and utilizing a TIC because they're becoming a lot more prevalent. So when I first got into the fire service, I started in a small call department. We had one TIC camera, and that was on the rescue. And now you look at most departments, even like call and volunteer departments, they're usually at one per apparatus.
And now they make personal.
We have personal.
Yeah.
We have them right here.
And
a lot of people don't like them. I've used them and I thought they were pretty good, but I haven't used them in like a real crazy environment yet. I
think they're an absolutely great tool, and even now they make them. My old department, the officer on the downtown engine has one built into his face piece.
Right.
So they're definitely more
and
now they're
on a personal level.
Now the technology. Have you seen the FLIR cameras?
No.
I know they just put one on our the squad. The rescue has them. And they're just, they're so crisp. They're so crisp.
What's the ones that begin with a B? It's Bullard.
Bullard.
Yeah, that's what we have. We have the Bullards
the little
on the ladder, and then we have which ones did you just mention?
The FLIR.
The FLIR. Yeah, we have the FLIRs on our engines, and then we all have our personal ones.
Yeah. So we had the Bullards. The rescue had a mix of the Bullards and the FLIR, I think, or maybe they had kind of all gone to FLIR, and then actually just got an email yesterday that we now have the FLIR on the squad.
So who makes the small blue ones?
Bullard.
Bullard.
It was a Bullard, yeah. The downside, just a quick aside on those things, is that the button to release the camera is behind the camera, and I don't know about you guys, but we've had so many people just yank them off and break the bracket.
Yeah. We haven't. I know what you're talking about. They are weird.
It like rocks.
You have to reach behind it to hit the button.
Push it.
Yeah.
So our motor squad actually built like a machined a little like metal bracket that comes up, and so that it says push, and so it's a little easier to hit.
I do like those because when I'm walking in with that FLIR hanging off my neck, it's kind of big and cumbersome. I did like the Bullard because it was small, but obviously the difference between like the old Bullards we have and like the new FLIRs, it's pretty substantial.
The new FLIRs, at least the ones I used when I was training a couple weeks ago, are they're not as compact. They're still kind of like a handle, but
that's what I mean.
They're much more compact than the
old
school
ones.
Yeah. Like the ones where you like had to look down into it and it looked forward or whatever.
Literally had a carry strap.
Yeah.
We actually had a local company in town, pretty well-to-do company. I'm blanking on them right now, but back like say 20 years ago when like these things were like $40,000 a piece.
Yeah.
The chief went to him and said, "Hey, we need these. Like, how many you need?" They're like, 2 of them. This is what they cost, and they like wrote us a check, and so the department could get them.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
See, like if you work in a place that's fortunate to have like small businesses and stuff that care, like that's pretty awesome.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
And then when you work in bigger places, they prioritize who carries them because you can't necessarily put them on every piece.
No, you can't. Yeah.
But yeah, so in that scenario, the officer overwatches the search firefighter and orients them back to themselves. Again, keeping contact through voice. The thermal imager is contact, right? So you can see them, you know where they are, and then again, or physical contact. The only thing you have to be aware of is potential rapid change in conditions, right? So I could be able to see you, and with a thermal imager, generally I'm going to be able to see you even if conditions deteriorate. But say that neutral plane starts dropping real low, you know what I mean? You might not be able to see that person anymore, and they might have to get down and get back to you or something like that. So that's kind of what I consider advanced practices. Like there's a little bit more, and we'll talk about that too. Kind of prioritize searching. So this is like the tools of searching, and we'll talk about kind of the method of searching. And before we do that, prioritize search is on here. So talking about prioritizing the search, and this is actually Deputy White had posted this. We put a thing on our Facebook about it. And he mentioned like prioritizing searching. So if you go upstairs and it's a residential structure and there are bedrooms, and there are bedrooms with closed doors and bedrooms with open doors, you might prioritize, especially doing a camera assisted search, going to those bedrooms with open doors first. That's where the biggest life hazard is. Because the flow path, because the fire can get in, the smoke gets in. So you might prioritize search areas. So back to your point is, if I pull up to that residential structure at night and the fire is on the first floor, I'm probably going to go right up to the second floor and start searching bedrooms. And then even more detailed is going into searching open doors versus closed doors. And so this is all the like, when you get out of like that basic recruit training, right? And again, I'm going back to kind of the National Fire radio episode I listened to, is the guy RJ that was talking from Capital Training. It said that you get all these skills in the academy. The difference is that you get the basic versions of these skills.
Correct.
And then as you advance in your career and your firefighting, you gain experience and training where you should be able to make more decisions. So instead of getting on the wall doing a right-handed search, now I can go up and say, open door, closed door, I'm going to that one.
Well, it's kind of like recognition prime decision making, right? Like now you have the data, and now you have the experience to put the two together.
Right.
It's what I like often find myself talking about, is like your working knowledge. Right. There are some things that like you just bring it back to something easy, right? And it's like, because this is what we do more of, right? Like you gain your paramedic vision in a sense where all of a sudden you're doing something. You have this working knowledge where like you like know in a sense that you don't need to do this, so you can prioritize that thing last. Like when I have somebody who cannot breathe in front of me, right?
Right.
Yeah, that, you know, maybe there is something going on with their heart, but I'm pretty sure I hear audible wheezing. Let's get this person CPAP'd up, or let's get whatever the case is, right? Whether maybe they need an EpiPen, whatever it is, right? We know we don't need to stick them on our monitor, so you prioritize these things, but you don't get that day one,
right?
And the verbiage that I find myself using a lot is your working knowledge.
I think that's great.
What I think of how I look at things today is not how I looked at things 5 years ago, will certainly not be how I look at things in 5 years. Yeah. And so I had this conversation with actually a few people in different industries, still healthcare related, and like a really young practitioner, right? And someone like our age, more or less, who's been practicing for a while, and had the same conversation where it's like your working knowledge will change, and you'll treat and do things completely different. Yeah. From day one to day 5, and it's all the same in this. And it's so hard to gain a working knowledge in this field for a lot of us, right?
Yeah. Right. You have the insight. I remember a good way to correlate that, similar to what you said. I think we were talking about jiu-jitsu one time, of like a senior practitioner rolling with a junior practitioner. Yeah. Where this junior practitioner is like going 100 miles an hour, using all the strength he can muster. Right. And the senior practitioner has all those same fundamental skills, but can apply them differently, and has the foresight to understand what's happening and kind of maybe use less energy. Same thing as like a senior man versus a junior man, where like I'm going 100 miles an hour, like trying to keep up. Yeah. And he doesn't necessarily need to use the same energy because he's seen this before, he's done this before, and can targeted.
I'll liken it to like my own personal thing. And
I was just going to bring it up because I know exactly what you're going to say.
Go for it.
I was going to say how where you strung together a few fires in a row, where by the time you got to like the third fire, you're walking in, you're using your senses.
Yeah.
And you're like, all right, I remember this, I remember this, I remember this.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, no kidding.
That's exactly it. So like the first fire you go to, your adrenaline, you're relying on the person you're with to know a little bit more than you, which can be scary because sometimes they do or don't, you know. And then you string a few of these together, and every time you learn a little bit, and then the fourth or fifth time you go in, you're making these mental notes that you couldn't have made before because you didn't have the base knowledge.
You didn't have the working knowledge.
The working knowledge to be able to do that. And like again, like a medical thing, like you're prioritizing the most likely scenario. Could you be wrong? Yes.
Absolutely.
But if I did this 9 out of 10 times, 9 times I'm gonna be more right here, and one time I can then go back to the basics and come back and find out what's going on.
It literally goes back to the first episode. Recognition. You're recognizing a pattern that you've seen before, influencing and informing the decisions you're going to make. And
then even above like open and closed doors, you can start prioritizing like, okay, now I have, a kid's name, they decorate their door or whatever. Okay, so I have 2 open doors. Well, I'm going to go to this one that has the kid's name on it. That's likely a child, and I'm going to make sure I thoroughly search the closets or places that they may hide versus a adult's room where I'm going to obviously search those, but I'm going to probably be a little bit quicker about getting through that stuff because, a 200-pound adult male is going to be a little harder to hide in a closet than a 30-pound child, exactly. So prioritizing your search, using the tools that are available, not having to be so stuck on the wall, and getting through the search. So obviously we don't want to miss things, but we need to be fast doing this because literally every second somebody's in this environment is a second closer to them not being able to recover from it. And just for our own thing, so why prioritize an open door versus a closed door? If everybody's heard. I
was going to mention this.
Yes. Close before you doze. It's a huge campaign in the fire service, right? So closing that bedroom door, even with the crappy doors they have today, the difference in these rooms when a fire comes down the hallway is the difference between a room that's 1,000 degrees and smoked up and a room that's 100 degrees. So this is literally a study burn that they did. They burned this up. They had temperature sensors everywhere. And the room on the right had the door closed. And again, we'll throw this on our social media. The room on the right had the door closed, and that was a survivable room the duration of the fire. And the room on the left was not a survivable room after just a few minutes. And again, why we need to be quick and then prioritize, because if somebody who's in this room on the right has plenty of time, somebody in this room on the left does not have plenty of time.
That's something I sleep with almost all the doors open.
Oh yeah, especially my kid's door closed tight. My door closed. Yeah, always.
That's a good point.
So this is just a totally, I don't want to say totally different search method, but this is a different from your standard entering a building and making the decision where you're going to go in that building. So vent, enter, isolate search, right? So this is primary search where you've identified a high threat or a high likelihood of somebody being trapped, or maybe you were reported that somebody was trapped in a room and the hose line's not yet in place and you can't advance into the front door of the building to hit this room. So what you choose to do is you choose to go through a window. So vent, enter, isolate search is exactly what it sounds like. So again, it's going to be a target area. First thing you're going to do is vent, take out the window, control with control. Obviously for the people that could be on the other side of the window, for the people below you. Also keep in mind, again, flow path. So you don't know that room you're going into, whether the door is open or closed. So by opening that window, you're potentially drawing fire at yourself or at the victim.
Right.
Don't vent until you're ready to make entry. Again, this goes back to that flow path. Once that window is open, there's no more controlling it. And then take note of changes to smoke velocity, color, heat after taking the window out. Again, this is just the same thing. It's going back to flow path. So if you notice that the smoke is all of a sudden getting turbulent, dark, if you have a high neutral plane, like you can kind of see in that room, and all of a sudden that neutral plane is on the floor, well, you know that room is about to flash, right? So you got to be careful. And then again, just beware of the flow path. So second step would be to enter the room. Sweep the bottom of the window for victims who may have been trying to get out of that window, and do this before you sound the floor so that you don't mash somebody in the head with a Halligan, right? So just reach down wherever your arm can hit. Try and see if you can find somebody there.
Or if you're a foot first person, get your foot down there.
Yeah,
whatever.
get your foot down there. And then immediately after that, you want to sound the floor. So again, you're assuming you're operating above a hose line, or even if you're not, potentially fire in that room, whatever. Make sure you sound that floor so that you don't go through that window and right into the basement. If you have a tick, scan the room and 5 sides, right? So we're not talking left, right. We're talking ahead of you, left, right, up, and down, right? And that could be, you could have, again, say that neutral plane's like down a couple feet or the smoke's banked down a few feet. Well, you could see the bottom of a bed, right? And then you look up and it's actually a bunk bed and there's somebody there. So you got to make sure that you're scanning 5
Entirety
sides.
yeah.
This is one scenario where you don't really have to scan behind you because, in theory, right now you're still out of the building making entry in. Again, I said it 10 times already. Take note of the neutral plane. A low neutral plane is a high threat to us and to the victim. And then once you're inside, this is just a tip I saw online, is leave a tool sticking out the window. So take a pike pole with you. Keep your Halligan for what you might need to keep it for, or your adze or whatever you carry with you. Take a pike pole, stick it out that window. It does 2 things. It keeps the window. It lets you know if you hit it, that's where the window is, and it points out. And it also lets somebody who might not have been aware of this operation, who's coming around the building, see that somebody's in that room.
Right.
Yeah, someone's operating inside conducting search.
Because we see ladders thrown to windows all the time, and you don't necessarily know because you are involved in another part of the operation. People are going in, or whether they're just set up for egress, whatever the case is.
Smart.
Seeing that tool sticking out the window, you know somebody's in there and they're not out yet. And then alert crews or alert somebody that VEIS is being performed.
I like to when I go to hotels, I like to
it.
grab the do not disturb things, and I will put it instead of the doorknob. I'll put it on the top rung of the ladder that says like occupied, so people are like, oh, somebody's in there.
There you go.
You are never ever drinking that drink before a show again.
Sorry,
You're banned.
I'm like, I don't know where he's going with this,
Yeah,
but
you're
I'm just
banned.
gonna let him go.
I could see him like.
yeah, no, it's not a good idea.
I love it actually. And then so the third part of this, and this is like I've heard different speakers talk about this and get hard up on this term isolate. So some people are like, you absolutely have to do it. Some people are like, it doesn't matter. My opinion is it's huge. So isolating is isolating that room from the fire. So
I don't see the argument on the other side, but
the argument I've heard
Enlighten
is
me.
so the argument I've heard, and I guess I'll pose the question to you, is you enter a VEIS,
yeah,
right? You have a victim on the floor, and the door is open. Do you grab the victim or do you close the door?
I would close the door.
close the door.
Okay, so that's the argument. Is some
Yeah.
people say absolutely not. You should grab the victim. I'm of the opinion that you should close the door because you now stop the flow path. That person already in there. You're adding
Yeah,
very little time to
Right.
make this situation safer. Because the other thing too, especially if they're unconscious, even if they're not and they have CO poisoning and they're disoriented, whatever the case is, you're not just picking them up and chucking them out
No,
the window.
there's a
it
process.
takes
Yeah.
time, and that whole time while that door is open, you're potentially bringing that fire to you.
right.
And
Yeah,
that's
it's a
when you get
difference
to the
of-
point where you're getting burned up trying to get somebody out of a window.
Difference 15, 20, 30, a minute. It can make
Yeah.
all the difference in the world from
Yeah.
a tenable to a completely
So,
untenable
so
environment.
that's the argument I've heard, and I'm a believer in isolate. You know?
I would say. I mean, I don't really see the other side of it,
Right.
especially when it's like you step over him, you shut the door, you turn around, and then you go to work.
Then you have time to work.
and then you're not worried about the room flashing as fast.
Right.
You know what I mean? You can concentrate on what you're doing. I don't really see the other side.
Unless
of the
you're
argument,
right,
but-
like unless you make entry for the VEIS and they're right there, like as soon as you're sounding the floor, you have a victim, then I'm just gonna take them out. But otherwise, if you know what I mean,
you think you're just gonna take him out, but
Yeah.
that's the point. Like,
Yeah, how are you going to
that's
do
the
that?
whole point.
Unless
True.
they're awake and help affect their own rescue.
true. No,
Listen,
that's a very
if
good
it's a
point.
little kid, yeah, you're just gonna rip him right out.
Right.
But if it's like,
Maybe
if
fully
it's
grown.
a will,
yeah,
no,
Yeah.
you might.
That's
you-
a coordinated effort.
that is a huge coordinated effort.
that's a very good
I mean,
point.
And I'm going to show a video here where they actually, and this is a technique I hadn't seen before, so pretty interesting. But this is actually an awake person,
right.
and I don't know if they're which video I have. Sorry.
Just real quick, like real life story. We had 4 people after we started extinguishing the fire able to get to a victim, and it took all 4 of these guys to to grab an older lady. She was an old lady, and bring her down the stairs. 4 of them, and like they're all, you know, you got your. There's all these things, right? You have your gloves on. You have all this stuff. Like you can't really get a good grip on. You know what I mean? I mean, they're doing everything that you lose everything. So it took all 4 of these guys and it didn't look pretty. Like they got the job done, they got her down, and we were able to start care and everything. But the fact of the matter is, like, this woman was probably 100 pounds.
Right.
So imagine a 250-pound guy or girl or whatever. It's just like there's no way. You know what I mean? That's. I don't know.
The stairs is a good example. Like I've never walked down the stairs in a fire. I've always had a nice controlled fall on my feet because there's like a million lines. It's slick. There's debris everywhere. Yes. It's not like you're just taking these steps. You're kind of taking and sliding and moving, just trying not to eat shit on the way down.
Exactly,
you know?
Yeah, we had someone on the last fire that operated and rolled it, like I think fractured his ankle. Just fire was out. Overhaul. Walking down the stairs. Debris hazards and boom.
Yeah. That's where I feel like the most in danger always is coming down the stairs.
Well, because you let your guard down, because you're like exiting danger, or the danger's done in a sense, right?
Right.
It's mostly done, and then so it's like you let your guard down a little bit, and you just move in, and then you know,
gonzo.
That's the way it happens.
So I'm gonna play a video here, and I apologize. This isn't the video I was talking about, but I had watched another video. And they had, like, on the 3rd floor, a woman who was conscious, at some point decided she didn't want to exit, which made me think she was disoriented. And what they did is they actually put 2 ladders up side by side, so they get a firefighter on either side, and then carry that person down. And I was like, wow, that's a pretty sick technique. And I don't know that I've ever used or been shown that.
In the academy at that back?
Yeah, I believe we did. Yeah,
it's possible, and I don't remember it.
It's for, like, strategies and tactics for, like, very large...
Right.
Yeah, I think we did. It sounds familiar, but
so this video is a video of a vent enter search scenario, and I think what's worth noting here is that the door is not closed, and that's not a fault of the person affecting this rescue. I think that at this point, by the time they got there, the
Engine 12, structure residential.
It was kind of already.
Engine 12, engine 19, engine 11, engine 14.
I'm just going to fast forward a little bit. So this is San Diego, and this is a helmet cam. And this is honestly going to be probably more audio than it is going to be visual. So basically they pull up. You can see here you got fire showing out of a window. There was a gentleman a little bit earlier in the video saying that there were 3 kids in there, 1 on the top bunk, and he had a ladder in the like a regular ladder like in the window. So I don't know if he was trying to get in or if he was trying to give them a way to get out or what the case was. So this is the first firefighter. He says it's supposed to be 3 kids, and I'm going in.
I'm going right in.
So he says VES, right?
So they're currently on, okay. I was going to say they're currently on the exterior of the structure.
Yeah. So you can see the room next door is fully involved.
You can come up if you're working with Engine 12 fire attack. Copy, working with fire attack.
I got one coming out.
And you can hear that he's oriented with the person outside, his partner there. And you can't see a lot in this video, but what I think you can kind of see that the back side of that room is glowing.
Where are you?
Maybe that's just me.
I think it might be back.
Oh, is it?
All right. Yeah. I think it's just dark.
Because it's not changing. So this is the boyfriend yelling. There should be one on top too. So this room is conditions are worsening. It's getting hot. You can see that the room next to it was fully engulfed, and I think that's probably traveled down the hallway and started traveling into the room. So he's trying to cool the room. I'm going to fast forward a little bit. So he says at one point. He says at one point, I hear moaning, and so he's trying to find where the moaning is coming from. So this room got so hot that he actually had to exit the structure.
We gotta put the fire, man. There's more in there.
So you can hear he's kind of desperate, right? And that's
That room tapped in.
not a situation that anyone wants to be in. So they take the line, they hit the fire in the room adjacent, trying to cool the entire space down, and then hit some more of the fire. And then his partner ends up going in for the second.
Hey, hold on. Dude. Dude, top bunk right here. I have mounting to the right. I'll be right back in, man. I just need a break.
So he's going in, he's saying, I heard moaning to the right of the bunk beds. He's going to kind of skip around a little bit.
Right there. Go! I heard moaning to the right.
There's no tick involved, right?
No,
Just-
not
yeah,
that I'm
oriented
aware of.
search.
Not that I'm aware of here. This is just an oriented search.
Yeah! Yeah, Joe's in there. We got one more kid in there. What?
So you can see this fire that was coming out of the window before it looks like kind of back in the hallway or the back side of the room.
This window. Alright. It's too fucking hot. I had to get out. I got one out. Okay. Hey. Is he in there? Yeah. Yeah, what's up? Hold on. Here's the first kid. Right here. Hold up. Stand up.
So you can see them handing out another kid, and then they continue the search, and ultimately the 2 of the 3 kids survived. A 12-year-old deceased, unfortunately, but that's the reality of a vent enter search, right? So that was the access they had to the room. They had to get in. That fire had already kind of impinged on that room, and so I like in that scenario, probably closing that door wasn't really an option, and you can see that the heat
Damage was
conditions,
done, yeah.
the damage was done. The heat conditions continued to go, and good job by these guys getting in and getting 2 of those 3 out and alive.
To me, it brought up a good point of like making a decision. I wanted to pose it to you guys. So you're doing, you have your partner, Firefighter 1, Firefighter 2. Firefighter 2 is helping to orient the search. Say, John, you bring a victim to me at the window. I take the victim out, and now I have to go back out to the street to the paramedics. You have to make that decision, like, do I continue the search solo without someone to orient and, potentially give me that auditory guide back or help facilitate the search of the room?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's a
judgment call.
It's a judgment call, and it's one of the things that we like to highlight on the show all the time is that it just depends on what your job looks like. You know what I mean? If you have 20 guys there, then that's never going to be the case. If you have 3 guys there, well, that will probably be the
so
case every
interesting enough. I have a user submitted scenario for this, but also I think that we risk a lot to save a lot. And if we knew that there were 3 kids in that room, personally, I'm gonna knowing that guy's coming back or somebody's coming back, and
continue.
I'm gonna continue.
The search.
So. This was submitted, Barry, you might have heard this scenario before, but this was submitted by a lieutenant on a slightly more suburban department. He put it on our Facebook page. He said, a few years ago, I was presented with a tough scenario with a need for a search. A little background, my department runs 2 stations. At the time, we were staffed with 5, a shift commander, an engine with a lieutenant firefighter, and a quint with 2 firefighters. Received a call for a residential basement fire about 2 minutes from our second station, staffed with the engine. It was about a 4-minute differential and arrival from our headquarters. So for the Quint, it's about 4 minutes difference arrival. On arrival, found a basement fire and multi-level home, so it's kind of like a split entry that was extending into a one-car under garage with rapid fire development. The fire was also extending through a floor vent into the first floor living room just inside the front door. The resident advised that her 20-something-year-old son may be in his bedroom on the second floor. At the time this info was received, I had an 1 3/4 stretched to the open overhead garage door. Staffing is so important when you're understaffed. Hard decisions need to be made. As an initial 2 firefighter company, what would you do? Fire attack or split the crew and have one person search solo above the fire while the other one puts the fire out?
So
It's a tough call.
I never even considered splitting the crew, but I think that we always hear put the fire out.
Makes everything better.
Makes everything better, right? And so you can concentrate on that. Like, let's say you go in and you get 90% of, like, the bulk of the fire is knocked down, right? And now you know that you have another crew coming in behind you. Maybe you're like, okay, we knocked this down. Now let's go search. Maybe. I don't know. That's
I can tell you what did happen on this call, and I'll tell you after.
Yeah.
It's a judgment call, and I don't think anyone can really criticize you either way. Like, you're making really tough decisions with limited resources, so I'm inclined to go with, hey, like, the only thing that's going to improve conditions overall is the prioritizing extinguishment.
right.
If I felt that, like, there's a really good chance that, like, they're in a survivable, tenable space and that might change immediately, then maybe I'd make that call. But it's tough. It's a tough decision. These are decisions that these smaller departments have to make every day. It's tough.
Yeah. So I think this is a great highlight because, again, there's a very big difference in showing up with, 2 trucks, 3 pumps, a squad of rescue, and showing up as a single engine with 2 people with your closest person coming 4 minutes behind you. 2 questions I'll pose here. Does it change your thought process if you have an experienced versus an inexperienced partner? Yeah. And does it change your thought process if the report of the kid is pretty reliable? Like, I am very certain they're in their room upstairs.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Yeah.
So, obviously, if you have a really experienced person with you and you really feel like you can get a substantial amount of work done in a short amount of time, you know what I mean? Then I would say, like, yeah, maybe you do make that decision for you just to go in and make a quick grab and get out, which I've actually seen firsthand at fires. And then what was the second part where you said?
A really reliable report that there is a person
And so,
there.
and that was the second half of the same scenario, is that there was an extremely reliable report. And it was like, okay, let's go in and make a quick grab.
Right.
And in the end, the fire still went out in a relatively fast fashion after the fact. It just, so all those things can be done,
Yeah, I would say if the report's reliable, split the crew. Especially, like I said, if you know that, like, there's to a high degree of certainty there's someone in there, and you're confident in one of the members' experience that they can go in there, execute a quick search, and get them out. Maybe that other firefighter, if they're just doing sounds like pseudo exterior extinguishment, just put water on the red stuff, and just try and make it happen. I would be more inclined, like John.
So just a little bit scenario here is like just to kind of paint a picture for our audio listeners too is fire looks like it's extending into the first floor, but you don't have smoke or anything in the first or second floor. So my thought again is, and it does change based on having you got somebody, either some of these places you don't even go to the academy before you get hired or fresh out of the academy, whatever. In the end, this crew split. So the lieutenant took the line to the basement. It was he pushed his gear actually got burnt up pretty good, and then the second firefighter went up to the first floor, realized that fire extending only had extended a trash can, threw it out, went upstairs, was able to perform a search. The child was not in the or it's 20-something-year-old, but the person was not upstairs. My thought on the scenario is floors are pretty clear, so you can see. You can go up, you can isolate if you find somebody in a bedroom, and then have somebody come through a window. The odds that if you're on the second floor and it's a basement fire, they're going to overwhelm you. I feel like it's a pretty good decision, and which is what they did. And I think, but I also think that, to your point, putting the fire out is also a completely safe decision. So you take a peek in and you see that is just a trash can burning. and you pull that trash can out and you go back and you hit the basement and make sure that it doesn't get up into the first and second floor. Maybe that's the safer play. So,
I don't think, like you said, I don't think there's a wrong. You're presented
Yeah.
with multiple tough decisions. And this is where I have a lot of admiration and respect for these smaller departments, because we have the luxury that we don't really have to choose either or.
It's just all
Both,
getting done.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's huge. And again, like you know, risk a little, save a little, risk a lot to save a lot. So the validity or the reliability of the report of somebody trapped, the conditions, the whatever the case is, makes an informed decision on your part. And this is again where that experience and knowledge comes in. You know, again, like, do you have the experience and knowledge to take a look back and say, okay, I feel okay with this person, with that report, with these conditions, sending that person? You know, if the whole house was completely smoke filled where you weren't going to be able to see, you don't have a thermal imager, like all those things, like maybe that's a different story. And unfortunately you have to wait. Or, you know, what bedroom is theirs? Oh, it's that window. Okay. Maybe we just throw a ground ladder and do a VAIS and they come in. Whatever. I mean, there's 100 ways that you could tackle this, and unless you're in the scenario, I don't think you could really say which way is going to be the best without being able to make those snap judgment calls. So I thought it was interesting. Obviously, it was something that that this person thinks
Appreciate
about. So.
the user submitted scenario.
Yeah.
A lot of admiration for the smaller departments making it happen with limited resources.
Yeah. So that's it for search. I thought that was pretty good. And again, this isn't teaching you how to do a search or telling you that you should do something a certain way. This is kind of just getting that conversation started, as always. So
Do you guys follow that account online, Search Culture?
No.
I don't think I've seen that
Yeah,
one.
it recently kind of got shown to me. They have some pretty good stuff on that.
Yeah, check it out.
Yeah, definitely take a look at that.
The ever important question of the day. I want to know what your guilty pleasure food is. So, like, listen, I know there's like people like candy or whatever, but like, what's that like thing that you're embarrassed to eat in front of people?
Nothing.
Don't, Barry, you literally, if you eat something with 3 grams of fat, are like, I'm a piece of shit. So I know you have one.
I have food that I feel guilty about eating after because it tastes good, and I know it's so bad. For me.
Everybody has a food that they're like,
So there's
that
foods
they eat at midnight by themselves.
Yeah,
Other than Erica's one chicken tender.
Yes, other than Erica's
yeah,
chicken
geez.
tender.
You're gonna be making up for that one for a
Yeah.
while.
You got one, Johnny?
I'll tell you. So I can come at this from a few different angles. Number one, and there's a lot to this, right? But goldfish. If I open up a little kids package, like the 100-calorie packs,
Yeah.
the whole thing's gone. There's obviously no question about that. But it might as well, if I open up like the party size bag of it, it might as well be the 100-calorie, because I don't stop. I just can't stop. I even
Yep.
have like a method of how I eat them.
Dude,
You
I have
know-
methods eating. My wife thinks I'm a weirdo. But
So, yeah, but I try to stay away from them because I know they're just incredibly unhealthy for you.
Yeah.
They're like just some of the worst.
I
things
feed them.
going.
I feed
yeah.
it to my kid all the time.
Yeah, get them some. They actually make like fish brands that are like extremely healthy.
Yeah.
But But I will say, people make fun of me for some of the things that I do eat because
That's what I want to know.
Because that's effing disgusting. But I always have in my locker at work, and then when I cut them open, people are like, "What are you eating?" But I always have like canned salmon and sardines.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Dude, sardines are delicious.
I've never had
Well,
them.
we know
I'm just
John's
not
a liar.
seafood guy.
And yeah, but it's like one of those things that like I pack them with me on every hike, and I say to everyone, "Hey, you want some sardines?" And everyone's like, "Dude,
They're
no."
super calorie packed. Like, I know that they're actually,
Dude,
there's a lot of calories
Sup-
there. I just
super good
don't-
for ya?
I don't like seafood.
Hey,
Love
that's
'em.
great.
Love them.
That's great. No thanks.
Love
I'm out. Barry?
I don't know if I have a food that like people see me eating and are like, "What the hell?"
Well, I can tell you, if you ever watch Barry eat pickles, you will be like, what the hell?
Okay.
'Cause
Yeah,
he does with
I eat
pickles
a
what
lot
you
of
do
it,
with
yeah.
goldfish.
Yeah. If there's an open can of pickles, like, unless someone actually physically stops me, I'll take it all the way. Especially those
You should get the big jar of the
the
massive one.
jalapeno, the ghost pepper pickles. That was a really bad decision for me.
We did that in the firehouse, and Barry's tummy did not like ghost pepper pickles.
I like thought my like esophageal lining was
yeah.
just being disintegrated.
I don't mess with spicy food like that.
Oh, dude.
I don't
you-
do it.
I haven't met hot enough yet. I know it's out there, but I haven't met it
Wickles pickles. Have you ever had Wickles
yet. I've
pickles?
had Wickles. They're hots for sandwiches. Yeah.
Wickles pickles are good. You should try those. I
Yeah.
feel like
I'm a
Wickles,
big
yeah.
Nathan's. Nathan's pickles.
Grillos, man.
Grillos are also good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it had to be. I mean, I have food that like this one specific pizza place that's like that dirty, gross. Just in the moment, you're like, "This is amazing," and then 5 minutes later, you're just sweating and just feeling absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
But I suppose pickles because I just can't stop.
You weirdo. Nick, everybody's got one except for Barry apparently. The one you just don't eat in front of other people.
Like, do you mean like a sit down watch a movie kind of munchy?
Would you like to know mine? Maybe this will help you guide your decisions.
Well, you're the one that came up with the question, so you should go first.
Here we go.
Vienna sausages. I fucking love
mini weenies.
Vienna sausages.
Really?
And these are like, all right. So now it's out in the open. I like them. Don't judge me. Actually, do judge me. Maybe I'll stop one day.
He likes little wieners.
Listen, whatever, man. I love like I go to the grocery store and I grab a can and like I eat them and like throw the can away before I get home so people don't know about it.
I drink pickle juice. Is that
no? That's normal.
Yeah, okay, pickle juice is great for you.
Electrolytes, man.
Yeah.
I will say that reminds me. I'll go get like the single serve, like B&M or Bush's like baked beans, like this, and I won't even. You don't even heat them up. Just eat them right out of the can.
See?
And when people see me do that too, and they're like, "What is wrong?"
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm talking about, right there.
I prefer to eat SpaghettiOs cold.
Everybody prefers SpaghettiOs cold. What do you?
I'm trying to. I'm
Serial
really
killer?
working hard to try
I prefer
and find
not to
something
eat
that's weird.
SpaghettiOs. Honestly, I think
They're delicious. Original SpaghettiOs.
The thing is that your taste buds aren't as good when things are cold, so you don't heat SpaghettiOs up because you don't want to taste them all the way. You just want to taste like them a little bit.
That's true. That's true.
Nick,
there's this like munchies mix kind of like where they sell like it's like popcorn and pretzels and all that stuff, right? But it's Reese's, so it's like caramel chocolate drizzled popcorn.
Yeah,
and then there's pretzels, and then there's those mini Reese's cups in there too.
Oh yeah,
that sounds delicious.
Okay, so here's the thing, right? I could eat a truckload of that.
Yeah.
Without with no milk, no water, nothing. Like I'll just eat
Someone
it.
stop this man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank God they sell it in like portioned packages.
I mean, I'll eat them until I get sick. If I have a whole party pack, it's just like, I open this bag.
That's
time
my thing.
To crush it.
Portion control is just not.
It's not. It doesn't exist for me.
But you know those guys. Like you wake up in the morning and they're like Twinkie wrappers in the thing, and you're like,
yeah,
nah.
You with gum.
So.
Yeah, that's me with gum. All right, real quick fun story.
Gum?
I once thought I had a heart attack at the fire station, and Barry was
didn't
mad
alert anyone.
Barry was mad at me because I
was
didn't.
pissed.
Hey, Willie, you got any more of that gum?
Yeah.
So apparently, I only learned this afterwards because it was the first time it ever happened, and I eat gum like this all the time. Is the sugar alcohols mess people's stomach up? So like that sugar-free gum has sugar alcohols in it. I have zero control with gum. Like I can't buy a pack because I have to chew like 6 pieces at a time. Like I can't chew a single piece of gum.
Just because you have a large
You know
mouth.
what? This might piss you off. I eat half a stick at a time.
That would
Erica's
I
mom
couldn't
does
do
that.
it. It's so small.
Because I just don't need a whole piece. It's like
I need.
So
like,
you know those Orbit like pop
Yeah.
tops with 60? I bought him one of this
Pop tops with 60.
No, I bought him
This
one
is
of these
true.
at the beginning
This is
of
a
the
true story.
beginning of the shift. Nick, the 60, you know, like for the center console of your truck.
Yeah.
I bought him one of those at the beginning of the shift. This is the shift that he thought he was having an MI. It was gone by the morning. All 60 pieces.
Yeah. So in the middle of the night, I woke up with severe chest pain, and I was like, I think I'm done. I'm not kidding. Like I actually for real thought I was having a heart attack. I went down, put myself on a 12 lead, the whole thing, and then a few minutes later, I realized it was stomach problems that felt like it was my heart.
But didn't alert anyone in the firehouse.
And then so I started looking, and I realized it was the thing. But I can't. You can't give me a pat. I will eat it all. Well, not anymore because that was so incredibly painful and scary that now I'm moderating myself.
Can I tell you my future guilty pleasure?
Sure.
I have a box of Velveeta shells and cheese.
Yeah.
That I'm saving for the day Will retires.
Oh, yeah,
that
that's
I
right.
found in my locker. So I'm I have no idea how old this box of Velveeta shells
It probably
and cheese is.
Stick it in the
expired
freezer?
years ago.
No, it's just it's like the powder. Yeah, like any shells and cheese but Velveeta.
We're both going to die
All right.
when
And
I
I
retire.
told him, I was like,
because
we're going to
eat.
cook this shells and cheese and eat it when you retire. So it's probably 5 years old right now.
Oh,
so
jeez.
Well, 5 years since you found it.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
have another one for Chris Abizel. I have the root beer from when I was just trying to implement cost savings. Is the
I would rather eat the shells of cheese.
Refresh root beer.
Refresh.
Chris, I'm looking forward to drinking that, buddy.
That's it. That was it.
right.
Thanks for tuning in. That was a fun episode.
I just want to go on the
Enjoyed
record and
talking about
apologize to everyone for my caffeine-fueled antics. Sorry.
You were actually entertaining for once. No, that's it. As always, please subscribe to the channel, check out our links in social medias, and interact with us. We appreciate you.
JobTlks out.